want to welcome everybody to the October Eye on Piscataway 2022, which is filled with a lot of segments for this month. We have some Pop Warner Awards that were given out from the 2021 season. We also have a grand opening of the Princeton Bank, as well as some clips from the football Piscataway Old Bridge football game, where the class of '72 is there being honored for their achievements on the football field, as well as an interview with our Fire Marshal, Piscataway Fire Marshal Bob Gorr, talk about Fire Prevention Month. And last but not least, Eye on Piscataway went on the road in the month of October, and we were down at the Robert Wood Johnson Barnabas Health Athletic Performance Center to interview Rutgers men's head basketball coach, Steve Pikiell. So with that, let's go to the feed. Well, we're trying something new for the month of October. We're very fortunate enough to be down at the practice facility here for the Rutgers men's basketball team on Livingston campus, right outside of Jersey Mike's Arena. And we're fortunate enough to have the head coach of the Rutgers men's basketball team, Coach Steve Pikiell, to talk about the upcoming season. I know there's a lot of basketball enthusiastic folks, not just here in Piscataway, but across the state of New Jersey in general. It's very interesting now how things have changed over the last several years now that Rutgers is in the Big Ten. And then also now the latest is now we have new members potentially coming in, UCLA and USC. So Coach, I want to ask you one or two questions before we get to talk about the upcoming season and the players. Okay. Did you ever thought when you were recruited to be the head coach here at Rutgers that someday that you would be in the same conference as UCLA and USC?
I tell you what, this is a lot of changes in the last 6 years. First of all, just being in this building, having you here too. A lot of things have changed in 6 years, but never in my wildest imagination did I, imagine that we would be adding two teams from, the West Coast, two storied programs in UCLA and USC. But it goes to show you the power of this league. And I think it's the best league in the country, both academically and big time sports. And now we've just added two huge academic institutions that are awesome and have tremendous tradition in sports too.
So when the news broke on that, and I'm sure your phone probably blew up from other contemporaries that you coached with, and saying, how are you the players gonna transition, playing two storied teams out on the West Coast and travel time and things like that? Normally, conferences are geographically pretty much relatively close enough together, but and I understand this with the media rights and how the Big Ten was trying to capitalize on the media markets. But for you as a coach, does that open up new avenues for you for recruiting purposes in on the West Coast?
It really does, and the footprint of our league is the footprint in where we recruit. Caleb McConnell was a great player out of Ohio. He came here because he grew up, with the Big Ten, and now we've recruited California a lot. Now we can go back and tell, student athletes that they're going to be able to come home a few times, during the year and play in front of their family and friends, home. But, the footprint of our league is really expanding. The media markets are unbelievable. You got the West Coast now and the Los Angeles media market. You got Chicago, and obviously New York and New Jersey. You have three of the biggest media markets in the country too. So your product is on display, year round, and on television from start to finish. The day. So it's exciting. It's exciting. It makes a great league even greater, and it adds some really academic pieces too. Because at the end of this, these schools are elite academically. Rutgers, Michigan, Northwestern. Now you're adding UCLA and USC. So it really is going to be great for our profile as an academic institution too.
So basically, I have to laugh when that news broke. I have a very good friend who's a USC law graduate, and I sent him a note saying, hey, welcome to the Big Ten. But I got to believe that the players have got to be very excited about that, that they're going to be playing, on the West Coast, and the other opponents that they normally would be playing in the Big Ten, and then the other non-conference games.
You're extremely excited about. First, we have a big alumni base in California too. You get to travel to an unbelievable city. We travel a lot anyways, so our players played tournaments in high school, out in the West Coast and Las Vegas and all different spots. So it's not as big a deal. Everyone's talking about travel. We travel a lot anyways. These kids come to our university already having traveled the country, playing games in various tournaments throughout. And I also am very confident in our league, and that they're going to figure out the best travel situations. There's a lot of smart people that are sitting around figuring out how to make travel.
There's going to be some statisticians, Coach, trying to figure out the mechanics, because it's just not Rutgers involved. It's the other teams on the timing, and I'm sure they're going to figure it out that the students aren't away from the classroom as much as possible.
Exactly. I mean, and there's new ways now that students learn in school, and now with Zoom and a lot of different things. I mean, we've gone to that. That's one thing the pandemic has taught us, is that we could still do things even when we're not in the location. So, it's going to be exciting for the league. And like I said, we're looking forward to new rivalries with some of the best West Coast teams, and we're looking forward to traveling out there. So I think it's going to be a great experience for our student athletes.
Well, I look forward to, I can remember when my mom and dad, when they were involved in Rutgers basketball, Mr. Club, that they would travel, and they played UCLA a couple times. They would travel out to the West Coast for the games. So I look forward at some point doing the same thing. Now let's talk about a little bit about your support staff. When most student athletes sign on board for a scholarship at universities, they know who the head coach is, who's recruiting, and maybe the assistant coach, but they don't necessarily know all of the minutia that goes behind the scenes on what makes a basketball program tick. Support staff. Can you dwell on that a little bit about the support staff? Because I don't think the general public realizes that it's just not a student signing a piece of paper and all of a sudden they show up on campus, and it's not the head coach that's handling everything 24/7, but it's really a lot of people that are delegated responsibilities that make sure that a student athlete is on an even keel throughout the course of whatever sport they are.
So true. I mean, too, as a mayor, you're only as good as your support staff.
Yeah.
We've been blessed here. We have an academic advisor who has been with us for over 20 years. She's really behind our kids academically, making sure they're taking the right classes to graduate, making sure they have tutors lined up, making sure when we travel on the road that they're not missing some of the assignments that they need. And Randy Larson does an unbelievable job, and she's been with me since day one. We've graduated every player since I've been here.
And I want to stop that thought right now, and that's a lot of credit to the university and the athletic department, because if you hear stories when every once in a while a news organization will do a story on graduation rates of academic of sports programs of universities around the country, Rutgers is always right up there in the top 10 or the top 20 of making sure their student athletes graduate and get through school.
And I appreciate you mentioning that too, because not only in men's basketball, but across the board, we have a President Holloway here who's from Stanford. He played, football at Stanford. He knows the rigors.
We're not going to hold that against him, though.
We won't, certainly, but he knows the rigors of academics and athletics. And then Pat Hobbs is, I think, a world-class athletic director. And it all starts with, the top and the philosophy and the support, because it takes a lot of people when you run an operation like this. And so we're blessed with that area. We also have a nutritionist who does an unbelievable job making sure our guys are eating right.
So you mean they're not allowed to go in and grab whatever junk food they want?
Yeah, I mean, they probably still grab a little junk food here and there, but she does a great job of educating them, trying to guide them in the right direction. They use up a lot of calories during the course of their training. She does a great job of keeping them on track nutritionally. And then we have Dave Van Dyke, our strength and conditioning coach, who's been with us now for 7 years. I think he's as good a strength and conditioning guy. His job is to make sure our guys are in great health, they're flexible, they're healthy, but yet they're in great condition and shape to go through the season that we have to go through here. Rich Campbell is our athletic trainer.
Before you go to the athletic trainer, I want to go back to that thought of the strengthening coach. Why is that so critical? I mean, I know you have you play a lot of games during the season. Could play up to 30 or more games. Why is it so critical that the players are in top physical form Is that because the tail end of the season that you
Yeah.
don't want them petering out? Or?
Oh, you better believe it. It's a long, grueling season. My men's basketball go 10 and a half months.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not like any other sport. You know, it's almost year round, all the time, to keep them healthy and to keep them, you know, on the court and to keep them playing at peak performance. It's so important to have a terrific strength and conditioning coach. And during the off season, he gets the same amount of hours as I get. The NCAA gives us rules about everything. Every time of the year, they have a rule. And the off season, there's 8 hours a week that we can train with our guys. He gets 4 of those hours. I only get 4.
That is interesting. I didn't know that they even regulate the strengthening coach. They can they go in the gym by themselves and just train with? It's just that they can't be supervised by the coaching staff.
Right. It's mandatory. You get 8 hours a week. That's all we can do. He gets 4 of them, and we get 4 of them. And the NCAA regulates everything. There's a time of the season.
So
and
I want to let the coach out there. Just when you think there's local government bureaucracy, there's even more bureaucracy at the NCAA. Go ahead, coach.
And so, you know, it's so important to hire a player, you know, a person in that position who's dedicated, loyal, and very knowledgeable. And we're lucky we have Dave Van Dyke, you know, doing the great work that he's doing. And he works side by side with Rich Campbell, our athletic trainer, who keeps our guys healthy. And, you know, with the doctors, all the different injuries, we currently have 2 guys out of practice right now, and they're in the middle. One's with a walking boot. One just had surgery on his knee. He's in charge of the rehab. He's in charge of all of our guys' health. And they work side by side and, you know, trying to get guys back on the court.
So as far as you professionally coaching, you know, remember as a kid growing up here watching Rutgers basketball, they necessarily did not have a strengthening coach. So that part of sports has really evolved, both no matter what sport it may be playing it, where there's specialization now involved in the sports athletic programs.
So it's really specific. And he was the first guy I hired was the strength and conditioning coach. That's how important it is to build your culture and your culture of being healthy and being flexible and being, you know, a great conditioned basketball team is so important. So first guy I hired was Dave Van Dyke, and he's done a remarkable job with our, you know, players ever since. And then you have to have your staff, which is very important. Brandon Knight, a terrific coach. He's been with us from the beginning. Carl Hobbs, longtime head coach at George Washington University, terrific coach.
Coach, I always remember when Rutgers was in the Atlantic 10 back in the 70s, because I was working on Capitol Hill with Congressman Patton at the time. My mom and dad would come down from Piscataway and go to, when they were playing GW down there, always going to the GW games.
There you go.
We always had a hard time beating them in the gym, but you know, I always remember those games.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Coach Hobbs came from...
Coach Hobbs came, he was the head coach at George Washington University. And our best player when we coached together at George Washington University was TJ Thompson, who's another member of my staff now. He's a great point guard. So Brandon, Carl, and TJ have done an unbelievable job. They scour the country for recruits. They work on player development. They spend time on game prep, all the...
So when you say player development, you need to speak in layman's terms for the folk, because there may be some people that don't understand the terminology that you do.
Right. Well, I mean, player development is every aspect of their basketball experience.
Okay.
You know, so when they come here, if they can't shoot, these guys are involved with getting them to be the best shooter that they can be. If they can't dribble the basketball, these are guys that make sure if they can't defend and be in the right spots, our staff, you know, is 100% dedicated to making sure a player gets better. We get high school players, unfinished products. We try to get them to the level of Ron Harper where they're playing in the NBA for the Toronto Raptors.
Yeah.
And so development and building, you know, their basketball skills along with their athletic skills that Dave Van Dyke works on, their conditioning skills are all part of the development process.
Yeah. Now, what has basically changed in the last 10 years as you professionally in coaching on how that has evolved over time?
Yeah, I mean, it really has. And, you know, a lot of guys have their own personal trainers and people that just specialize in it. I like to tell recruits when they come here, they have 4 of the best guys in the country that are on staff that can work with them every day for free. You know, huge bonus. If these guys were on the open market, Brandon Knight wasn't here and he was offering his skills to student athletes, they would pay a lot of money to have Brandon Knight train them, So it's really a big part of basketball now, especially with the NCAA, all their regulations, because they've regulated less hours in the gym that were available to them. And so there's more time outside that these kids have to, continue to develop.
That's interesting. Everything's regulated. So I guess we're going to switch gears and talk about all the fun stuff.
There you go.
Coming up. So after 2 NCAA appearances, how do you manage expectations for the upcoming season?
You know what the fun part of this is, even when I took the job 6 years ago, when we were picked dead last in our league and nobody was coming to the games, my expectations are to compete for national championships. So, I embrace the expectations. We've now gone back to back, but we've actually gone 3 straight. If the COVID year, we were 1,000% in the tournament. So we've put our program in a place now where we're going to go every year and we want to compete for national championships. And that's why I think the kids come, to our program here. And so we have a high expectation of what we're doing. And I'm thankful that the community has jumped on board. We've made Jersey Mike's Arena.
I know. I think there was at least a dozen or more sellouts.
Yeah. We will sell out every game this year. Yeah. So there won't be a ticket. And I'm excited,
I know Director Hobbs must be very happy about that.
I think a lot of people are. And our students really come and do a great job. So I'm excited at the environment that they have built, and you have to have everyone. Our band is awesome and they make the environment great. And then we have our dance team as national champs, unbelievable. They do a great job. Our cheerleaders, it takes everybody, to build an environment like that. And we have great season ticket holders and the students. And now you got Jersey Mike's, one of the top places in the country now in college basketball environment.
It does get to be a very intimidating venue for an opposing team, and that's the way you want it.
I love it.
So with Ron Harper and Gio Baker graduating, who's going to take over as the leadership level in the locker room and on the floor for the team?
We've been fortunate because we've really had great leaders here. Caleb McConnell was always a great leader. I think he'll be the National Defensive Player of the Year, so I think he has a chance to be the best defender in the whole nation. He's been here 5 years. He's grown and lived through a lot. He's always had great leadership qualities. Paul Mulcahy, he's a born leader out of Bayonne, New Jersey, and he led our league in assists last year. So these are really quality basketball players. And Cliff, our center, has grown to be as good a player as there is in the country. So we have great leadership out of those, 3 positions. And we've added some. Cam Spencer's a good leader in his own way, and Mawat Mag and Dean Reber. So I feel really good about our leadership. I think these guys are as dedicated as we've had. They're certainly our hardest, workers. And I think when you get the combination of great leadership and hard workers and, good things can happen.
So how are you going to keep the players need to be staying focused on these non-conference games when their head is always playing in the league?
Well, I mean, it's like anything, you have to, keep your guys focused on every game. Every game is important. We're going to play at Miami. Miami was in the Elite 8 last year. We're going to play Seton Hall. You know what that rivalry is like. So those non-conference games.
They made a very strong run, obviously, in the NCAA.
They sure did. And obviously, Shaheen Holiday's there now, and he's done an unbelievable job, and especially at St. Pete's. And so we're going to be challenged always. Every game is a challenge, whether you're in league or out of league. And, pretty much you have to win and compete in all those games to get yourself an opportunity to play in the NCAA tournament. And
so the depth chart on a team is, do you see like 7 or 8 to 9 players coming in on any given game?
Absolutely. Yes. I really like our depth on this team. Andre Hyatt, we have, Jalen Miller. We have some really good players. Oscar Palmquist has done a really good job in our practices. I think these guys are all going to get opportunities that maybe they didn't get last year because of Ron Harper, because of Gio and those kind of things. So I think they're ready to take that next step, and I'm excited, but we will be much deeper than we were last year.
So, and you just mentioned Ron Harper and Gio Baker. They accounted for a lot of the minutes on the court last year. So is there going to be more minutes as we spread around amongst the other players this year?
Well, absolutely. That's what happens with your programs. As you build, you always lose players. And that's the positive, especially when they graduate. Gio was his master's degree, and then Ron to go on and play in the NBA. It's a real positive for your programs. You'd like them to stay forever, but that's not the college model. We actually got Gio for 5 years, so we actually stole an extra year with him. So we loved having those guys. Those guys helped build our program. But you got to be ready to replace guys every year, especially in this world that we're living in of college athletics with the portal and with all the different things you're up against. So you got to have a good backup plan, and then you got to have some guys developing guys, and then you got to have a staff that's going to go out there and help you get the kind of players that you're missing in your program.
You spoke a few minutes ago about Caleb McConnell being an impact player. What are the expectations for him this year? I mean, he's already won last year the Defensive Player of the Big Ten, which is a very high honor. A lot of times it's very hard to replicate an honor such as that. Is there expectations that he's going to give it 110% out there to try to duplicate?
He's a special player here at Rutgers. Again, 5 years. He's played through injuries. He plays multiple positions. He could really play 4 spots on the floor.
He's more acting like a utility player.
He can play anywhere, and that's the good thing. He's kind of like, we've moved into positionless basketball. He can play the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 4, and if I wanted to go small, he can guard a 5 too.
So you just said a very interesting word, positionless basketball. The analogy for the general public out there, so what is that? Positions don't mean anything anymore?
I mean, everyone wants to, I'm a point guard, I'm a 2 guard, I'm a 3, I'm a 4, I'm a 5. These kids are so skilled nowadays that they can do a lot of those things and be 6'7" like Caleb is. And he's learned through our program. 1 year he had to be our point guard. He was Gio's backup his freshman year at the point guard position. Then he played the 2 spot. Then he played the 3 spot, and at times I put him at the 4 spot. He was Ron's backup last year. So, he's learned how to play multiple positions. He's continued to get bigger and stronger. He's going to have a great year this year. He worked out for a bunch of NBA teams last year. He's come back bigger, he's come back stronger, and he's come back more experienced, ready to have a great senior year.
So will Caleb, I'm assuming he's probably going to draw the most difficult defensive assignments on team because of his work ethic out there on the floor. Did you plan on doing it? Whoever the best offensive player on the opposing team, they're going to...
He's so unique because he can guard any position. So he really helps me a great deal. If their best player is a power forward, he can guard him. If their best player is a point guard, he can guard him. He's athletic enough. He's got great length, and he takes the challenge. He likes that. So he will definitely be guarding the best player. Jalen Miller is another defender that we have in our program that I think can play and guard anybody too. He's excellent defensively. So he'll get some tough defensive assignments, and other guys are getting. Mwap Mag's been capable defender. I think we're going to be a much better defensive team and rebounded team this year than we have in the past 2 years, and so I'm excited about that because that's a little bit of my DNA too. I like those kind of teams.
So Paul McCahey, what type of offensive role is he going to have compared to last season?
Well, I tell you, I mean, there's just more shots out there. Paul's more ready right now than ever before to take on huge role offensively. He did a great job last year, led our league in assists. So he's the #1 assist guy in the country, averaged almost 9 points a game. If you factor his assists and points in, he's one of the leading scorers in the country because all his assists lead to points. And so he's a better rebounder. He's a better basketball player than he was last year. He's going to have more opportunities. He's going to have to do more, because we did lose a couple guys that could really score the ball. But I think he's become a really good defender too. So excited about his improvement. He's going to have to take on a little bit more.
He hustles for the ball a lot.
He certainly does.
You always see him on the floor, trying to go after the ball.
Winner. He's a winner, and he makes winning plays.
So Cliff Amore, on the offensive side, has he grown into that position as center? He's very dominant with the dunks, as everyone knows.
Well, we all should be very thankful that he's here. Can play anywhere in the country. I think he's the best big guy in the country. And he went from averaging 4 points a game as a freshman to 12 as a sophomore, and averaging from 3 rebounds to 8. And now he's going to take that jump and be a double-double guy, which makes him one of the best big guys in the country.
So everybody always knows him as going in for the slam dunk, but will he be shooting more from the outside, or or is there just going to say?
The great part is he led the country in dunks last year, and we want him to do that again this year. but he's expanded he can shoot threes now.
Yeah.
You know, he's become a better shooter from anywhere on the court.
There's not many big players that are centers that can shoot threes.
Yeah, which is very true, and that's why some people don't play centers. They put a power forward at the 5 spot, and he could shoot threes. We have Dean Reber backing him up at the 5, and he's as good a 3-point shooter as there is in the country. So, but Cliff has gotten better and better. He's a Dean's List student too, I must admit. So was Paul. You know, like Paul graduated in 3 years. Paul Mulcahy. You know, like so these kids not only succeeding on the court, you know, off the court, they're doing unbelievable things too. So I wanted.
So you just mentioned about Dean Reber, and that was one of my next questions going there. Are we going to be expecting more of Dean Reber and Cliff on the floor at the same time?
Absolutely. Yeah, Dean has really improved a great deal. Can really run the floor. He's as athletic a guy as we have too in the program. He shoots threes. I mean, you know, he's ready to have a breakout season, and I'm excited about his development. People are going to be really excited. Dean Reber's a good player.
Now, you mentioned about Mag before. He had some injuries last year. How critical is that to make sure your team to be injury-free? Because then it really shuffles the lineup for you as a coach.
You know, it's so, you know, critical. I don't have a lot of players, 12 players. So if you lose one of them, 2 of them. We lost some games early last year, and no one ever talks about it, but Geo Baker didn't play.
Yeah.
He was a pretty good player for us, especially early on in the season. He had such experience, and then when you take him out of the lineup, you're now playing someone with no experience. You know, so it factors in, you know, injuries. You got to stay healthy. If you don't, you have no shot at the thing. Mawat has battled through injuries. He had the best summer of any player in our program. He had an outstanding summer. He's going to have an outstanding year too. So just really excited about those guys now having an opportunity, and they're ready to be real productive.
So you just mentioned over the course of the last several minutes about some of the veterans on the team. Some of the freshmen and the new players coming in, other than you mentioned Cam Spencer, what impact will they have?
You know, they've been awesome too. We have a player here at New Jersey, Lenape High School, Derek Simpson, who is, he looks a little bit like Geo Baker. I think his game is a lot like Geo's. He's a lot faster and more athletic than Geo was. I think he has a chance to be an outstanding defender, a wonderful kid from a wonderful family. His dad was a great player at Ryder, some great DNA.
And he's lucky because he's a Jersey where mom and dad and the family and friends come up and watch the games.
And we're lucky too.
Yeah.
So no, it's great. He's had a really good summer, and now he's figuring out how to be a freshman, you know, point guard at this level. But really excited about his future. Antonio Chol is a 6'9" player that we got from Minnesota Prep, who can really shoot the basketball.
So how does a player from Minnesota Prep end up in Piscataway?
Well, you know, the great part is we can go anywhere. The footprint of Big Ten basketball, first of all, Minnesota, you know, so we're not introducing them to Big Ten basketball for the first time. My assistant, TJ Thompson, did an unbelievable job recruiting him. We got him to visit with his mom. We got a really nice facility here. He likes seeing the gym packed. We had an opportunity for him that I think he's going to take advantage of, and he's been really good today. He can really shoot the basketball. And then Antoine Wolfalk is a big guy out of Cleveland, Ohio. Again, another school in the footprint of the Big Ten country, and really knows how to play. He's about 255 pounds, so he's big. He's strong.
So in other words, he's not going to get pushed around underneath the boards.
I don't think he's going to get pushed around. He's a former football player, too. So I'm really excited about where he could be and his development so far this summer, and moving into practices here. So we got a good group of newcomers, and they're great kids.
So as we're going to close out, the actual schedule for the non-conferences, the first month or so, and then you have, I believe, an ACC game against Miami down there, and then you go into the Big Ten schedule. What is your thought processes with the non-conferences leading up to the Big Ten?
I mean, we're going to play a crazy stretch. We've got Wake Forest, an unbelievable team that won 20 games last year. We have, you know, Seton Hall, obviously, is a huge rivalry game, and they do a great job there. And then Miami. Miami, like these, our non-conference is as challenging as ever, and then we play in the best league in the country. So I am real proud of this. We play a top 25 schedule every year.
And I was just going to mention that the university has scheduled, you're in the top 25 as far as toughness of the schedule out there. And, you don't shy away from
That's right.
the big teams.
A lot of gray hair. That's what it's from.
Well, I think that also, I know, but that also accounts that when it comes down to NCAA time with seeding time, they take into account the schedule.
You hope so. That's for sure.
You hope so. If you're ever on the bubble or something, hopefully that pushes you over the finish
And
line.
you're in the room with a lot of that kind of stuff goes around, and sometimes you scratch your head. But when a lot of people get in the room, a lot of decisions could be made. But strength of schedule is supposed to be an important part of those things, and we often play one of the best in the country.
Well, I want to thank Rutgers head basketball coach, Coach Pikiell, for stopping by on Piscataway. And we're encouraging residents here and folks that don't live in Piscataway to come out to Jersey Mike's Arena this year and to cheer on the Scarlet men's basketball team right there. And we just wish you good luck in the 2022-2023 season. We look forward to hopefully getting back into the NCAAs and taking on the Big Ten folks there and do us proud.
I appreciate you coming back. It's great to see you. And I love all our neighbors in Piscataway. Come out and see us. And we have a new women's basketball coach, too, who's doing an unbelievable job. And get to a football game, too. So our football team is on the rise, Coach Ciano. So there's a lot of good stuff going on here in Piscataway.
He's hired. He could be the PR person right there for town for Civic. So with that, thank you very much, Coach.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to be announcing the 8U and 10U championship teams last year. We're going to start with the 10U since they're already on the field. First up, Ryan Bailey, Maurice Bullock, Caleb Carmen, Dominique Charles, Gerald Charles, DJ Cook, Jackson Kraus, Kevin Kraus, Landon Cruikshank, Christian Delerby, Giovanni Fernandez, Michael Foya, Caden Francis, Noah Gaynor, Shamir Graham,
Joshua Hall, Miles Jennings, Khalil Jones, Logan Kelly, Tahari Kemp, Jalen Mangel, Jaden Miles, Jaden Schmaltz, Bryce Sebastian, Nicholas Sinclair, Jameer Sneed, Anders Spalding, Chaz Spotwood, Gavin Stanley, Tazir Strong, Talon Sumanti, Isaac Thomas, and Prince Vance. That's your 10U champions. This is your 8U champions. Kai Antone, Marquise Bonds, Aiden Booker, Mason Briggs, Charles Burrows, Victor Catalano, Caster Changris, Devon Davis, Ethan Ely, Julian Fernandez, Tamba Foya, Nazik Franklin, Tracy Glover, Xavier Harrison, Trey Huff, Idris Kelly, Jesse Lewis, Damani Lucky, Hassan Majid Jr., Makai McGee, Charles McMillan, Cameron Morgan, Antonio Morris, Race Morris, Obina Nasu, Liam Alexion, Mason Phillips, Hayden Reeves, Aaron Santiago, Jaden Smith, Josiah Vance, and Chase Walker. That's your 8U champions.
Well, I'm great to be down here and on Stelton Road, right in front of the Bank of Princeton's newly grand reopening here, or I should say opening. And I want to thank you all for being here to come and to bringing your branch to Piscataway. It's an exciting place with all the nice things that are happening out here on Stelton Road. And I would like to turn the mic over to the Chief Lending Officer. I think I got that acronym correct.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. The Bank of Princeton is happy to be a part of this wonderful community. We have welcomed so many people today, and we just look forward to doing a lot of business and, again, helping out the community. We're located at 1642 Stelton Road in Piscataway, New Jersey. Come and visit us. Thank you.
All right, but more importantly now, we're going to do the ribbon cutting and bless this beautiful one and bless the bank and bring many deposits down here. All right, there you go. There, great. Congratulations there. Congratulations, everybody.
The Piscataway football team struggled to find its identity. That struggle ended in the fall of 1972 when a special group of players who had developed as Piscataway youth under the tutelage of Pop Warner wizard Frank Sullivan now grew into the young men that they became as they were coached by Thomas Higgins and the staff of Piscataway High School. And they grew into champions, the first Piscataway Chief champion football team. Mr. John Canneran, Mr. Keith Harney, Mr. Mark Percival, Mr. Tony Solomon, Mr. John Stollery, and Mr. Corey Zanetto. From the junior class, representing Mr. Nick Saccone, is Beverly Saccone Bell and his daughter, Catherine Dixon. Representing Mark Klein is his sister, Lisa Cusimano. On behalf of Greg Douglas, his brother Keith Douglas. On behalf of Gene Coyle and family is Denise Humphrey. Mr. Tony Quiddick. Mr. Rich Collins. Mr. Jeff Hensel. And Mr. Fred Jernico. The first championship team in Piscataway history. The 1972 Piscataway Chiefs football team on their 50th reunion.
Thank you, brother. I know. Gotta look towards the camera.
Go. 1, 2, 3, go Chiefs!
Go Chiefs! Well, we're back in studio here for the continuation of the October Eye on Piscataway. I have here with me the Fire Marshal for Piscataway Township, Robert Gorr, who's been the Fire Marshal for a couple decades now, right now, Bob.
Correct.
Yeah. And you're probably wondering the reason why do I have the Fire Marshal on TV show? Well, the month of October is Fire Prevention Month. And I thought that maybe with a lot of the house fires, structure fires that have happened over the last year, that we might want to have a cursory, maybe 15 or 20-minute prevention segment on that, on what people can do to make sure a fire doesn't start in their house. I mean, some of it's basic, some of it you may not think of, but the fact that our volunteer fire companies have been answering a lot of calls for house fires and things like that, that I thought it would be prevalent in Fire Prevention Month to have the Fire Marshal on to talk about that. So with that being said, Bob, you know, most people, they either live in an apartment or a house and things like that. And, you know, people will turn a light switch on, sometimes light a candle, or possibly leave the house with certain appliances running, like the oven and things like that. Or in this day and age, most things are on timers, automatic timers that come on. And what is, I guess for lack of a better word, what is the biggest cause of house fires? Is it not just people just not remembering to shut something off, or putting something near a heater that they shouldn't be that catches fire, or is it just maybe old electrical wiring that may cause it, or is it using certain products that you shouldn't be using in a house? What, by and large, for over your years of investigation of why fires are caused and house fires, being the fact that I know every fire is unique to itself.
Correct.
But by and large, there must be some pattern or something out there that causes.
Well, first of all, what we see is that people, the amount of items they have in their house, the housekeeping issues, a lot of people, especially, it doesn't matter where you live, in an apartment, condo, or a regular single-family home. A lot of people, they have utility closets which have a water heater in it. They have a furnace. A lot of people put things against that. Anything that breathes a utility.
So when you mean things against it, like if somebody's potentially storing recycling
Clothes,
or newspapers.
Clothes, correct. Around a water heater, you should at least, anything, especially if you get into condos or apartments, some of them have enclosures, like a sliding door. A lot of people store brooms, they store plastic materials close next to even a dryer. All these type of appliances, you got to keep a distance of a couple feet of clearance, because everything breathes. It needs space.
So like in my own personal home, where my heater is downstairs, I mean, I don't have anything near 3 to 4 feet away from
That's the correct amount of space. 3 feet,
there.
at least 3
if
feet.
I do have something, it's just free weights right there, and it's metal. It's not going to catch. You know,
Correct.
But,
we call combustibles, which are cardboard, clothing material, anything can catch fire quickly. That's called a combustible. So if you have your utilities, such as, like I said, the heater, a water heater, people store stuff on top like a shelf, that there's a vent. You need space in order for that appliance to breathe, because it's a flame-producing or electric-producing device, which needs oxygen or air to get in the system and vent itself out. And a lot of people, what they do is they enclose that with household material, and it just gets suffocated. One big example we see in kitchen fires that throughout the time is that people don't understand why their freezer or their refrigerator catches fire. If you open up your freezer, a regular upside down, up and down freezer and refrigerator, you'll see that there's little vents inside the freezer. If you block those vents, you're supposed to keep the space. Don't put any type of food or material against those openings, like an air conditioner vent.
Yeah.
Because what happened is it runs on the motor behind the refrigerator on the bottom. If you suffocate that, then it starts building up heat, and the motor's working longer and harder to generate, because there's no airflow. You got to always have airflow into anything, appliances or anything that's plugged in. You got to have some type of space around it to get circulated air. If you don't, it's going to suffocate itself, overheat, and that's where plastics, it starts melting, and then you got yourself a fire. One of the other big things are a lot of people store things in their kitchen, and it doesn't matter if you, like I said, if you live in a condo or apartment or a house, a lot of people put stuff on the counter and around the stoves. So what you do is make sure that cooking area or what you're doing, even a plug-in coffee maker or a toaster, make sure that that's clear. And you made a good point in the beginning regards to old appliances. You can still have old appliances, but please check the cord if you have it plugged in. If anybody, what you can do, just we ask you for Fire Safety Month. It's really the first week in October, but we do it all year round, but everybody across the nation does this for Fire Prevention Month in October of each year, is they check to see if there's any cracks in the cord.
So in other words, the basic appliances, like say if you have a toaster oven or one of those little, bigger ovens that are on top of, say, where you're, like on top of the counter, a counter oven, and things like that, or if even I guess a blender for like that. So you just want to make sure that the ends of the cords are not frayed where it gets plugged into the outlet.
And also at the tip of the cord, you'll see where you plug in the device into the wall, is make sure that especially examine when you plug it in, you'll see two prongs. That's usually by a plastic or rubber holder. It's a little thicker than the others, and then the cord comes out, the two cords come out. Make sure that the cord itself into that connection isn't crimped or isn't broken off. Because what happens, appliances, just like refrigerators or any other appliances, once they turn on and turn off, that cord starts to get wear. You still got electric current throwing through the cord over a period of time, and it breaks down. Because there are little strands of wires that eventually heat up and cool down. So that's why if you just examine that, and a lot of people with electrical cords, speaking on that situation.
Hold on, let's stay in the kitchen area.
Okay.
We're moving
But
kind of quick.
that's what you would do in the kitchen. Just make sure that your appliances, check your cords, make sure you got ample space. And a lot of people with microwaves, what they do, and sometimes they forget, is they put aluminum foil or metal into microwaves. Make sure you unpeel or take that out, because what happens with microwaves and metal, when you turn it on, it doesn't mix. And what that does is it's going to catch fire because it heats that. You got the micro, so make sure you take any aluminum foil, or you don't put aluminum foil, and you basically just follow the instructions on whatever you're cooking. Just look on the back, just take an extra second, look on the back to see how to cook whatever you're cooking.
Speaking of it, we're talking about kitchen appliances and fire prevention right now. In this day and age, a lot of the high-tech kitchens that are being built now all have timers on, stop-and-go timers, say for gas ovens or even electric ovens. I mean, have you ever seen cases where maybe those have malfunctioned and there's been a fire?
Well, the newer equipment, they got some tip-off, or they got some safety devices on it where they shut down. But it's not common as of yet. The most common things are appliances that are the standard gas or electric stoves that we see over the last 20 years or so, that people forget that because it's a mechanical, that you physically got to turn it on and off. You see the flame or the electric, or somebody put something on it. But the newer styles, sometimes they have these safety devices where if it overloads itself, like a tipping device, then it's going to shut itself off.
Which is good now, because actually the Uniform Product Safety Code, they're really works with the Fire Prevention Bureau nationally in regards to those appliances. Yeah,
the testing over the years and recording what fires do on nationwide, that's where you get a lot of fire recalls from, different appliances such as the coffee maker, finding out that it overheats the element, and it was used to catch kitchens on fire. And that was a case that was being examined throughout the United States, and they said, well, everybody used to, wait a minute, they found something in common with all this, the recall, that it was always one appliance, a coffee maker, that was catching fire in kitchens. And that's how they get product recall. So it's like that on the fire safety end. We always monitor the recalls and making sure that things that are, make notification publicly as best as we can to say, you know, there's a product recall and contact the numbers or the information on the website that they provide.
Which is critical because nobody wants to see something seriously happen because of a malfunctioning product.
Correct.
I want to go back to the furnaces for a second. You know, every house has a different setup with the furnaces, and so basically, what you were saying before is the biggest cause of furnace fires is that there's things stored that are combustible near the furnace.
Yeah, that's the one key element that a person can do besides actually having someone come in, which you should do on a yearly basis, check your appliances, check the furnace.
So in other words, you're recommending that some people do have like yearly, lack of a better word, maintenance checkup, and that is a way of preventing anything serious from happening in the future.
That's correct. To see if there's anything stuck in the chimney, the flue they call it. It's a chimney stack going from your furnace up through your house, through the roof, up, and then venting itself on the outside. You could have obstructions like bird nest. Birds fly down there. It depends. You do have not just checking just for gas to see if it's burning correctly. That's what a technician would do. But also, you'd still have houses that have oil furnaces, hot water boilers, the old style. We still have that in our town. So having someone come in that knows that maintenance those things, they check that to make sure it's properly functioned, and it's good not just for the fire end, but it's good economically because they save efficiency to save on your energy bills.
Yeah. Now, all right. So we spoke a bit about the furnaces and things in the attic of a house. What should residents look for up there that may be a fire hazard potentially?
We see that if you do, a lot of people have attic fans. They have switches, they have light fixtures. If they go up in the attic, just make sure that you clear around the attic area around where the electrical cords.
Well, all I know is up in my, I have 2-zone heating and air.
Correct.
Up in my attic, there is nothing within 4 feet of the actual furnace upstairs.
Yeah, the newer style, the older style of homes, the furnace units, the utilities as furnace and water heaters, especially the furnace and air conditioner units, they used to be down on the first level. But because they found out to be more efficient to put these units in the attic area, a lot of people don't know that. Now you say, well, where's the utilities are on the first level? They put the utilities because the airflow is more efficient going down than going from the basement or going from the first level all the way up. So we find that there is utility services such as air conditioning units and heating units in the attic itself. And we say the same thing. If you're up in the attic, then make that 3-foot clearance around everything. Because everybody seems to, when they have the attic, that's, well, this is a storage, a temporary storage, and then you put one thing, as you know, then you put more things,
next
and it starts
you have a stockade of things upstairs.
Yeah, so in the newer style homes that got put out, they do have the appliances up in, the appliances up in the attic area. Just make sure that's clear, just like you did if it was on the first level.
Candles.
Candles are a big thing. We asked, this is some tips that I like to give out. You should never technically leave a candle unattended. You should
even when you're home.
Even when you're home. You never leave it. You should always monitor it and never, always double check. Even if you're in a hurry, please go out and make sure that candle's completely out. We asked this as well. If you're going to have a candle, whatever containment it came in, it could be a jar, it could be like a little tea candle, it could be a little metal disc or whatever it came in from the store or wherever you got it, get yourself a different container. It's going to be either glass or a metal containment. Put it down on the table and make sure everything is cleared away from it. Do not put, a lot of people put them on dressers, and you find, and they put clothes, and they leave the candle there continuously, just as the attic storing stuff continuously around it, that they put stuff around the candle that, oh, I'm not using it, I just leave it there, and then one day they decide to use it. Then finding out there's all kinds of material around the candle, And that's what catches fire, is it starts heating up. When it gets down to the bottom, most candles, as you see, if you tilt a jar in a glass candle, they have a little round disc. That's supposed to, with the wick that's in it, the flame goes down and stops at that disc, and that's it. But you have all different style candles that are out there that people use for religious purposes. They use for just the smell of it, because they put the perfumes and so forth, the fragrance that are in there. But don't ever leave it unattended, and put it in another containment. And the first thing before you light that candle is make sure it doesn't tip over. Just put it down on a flat surface and make sure that the candle does not tip over, because candles, they put on ledges, and you put them on an unstable tray, somebody walks by, or you can even have an animal such as a cat or whatever that jumps up, and making sure it's solid, that it's not going to rock or move over. But make sure everything is in proper clearance with a candle. But candles are,
Well, it sounds like common sense.
Yeah, well, we have fires that a lot of candles are the cause of the situation, and it burns down from one room to it can burn a house down.
Yeah. So with that, I want to thank our Fire Commissioner Bob Gorr for coming on the October show, I Am Piscataway. And remember, it is Fire Prevention Month. I do know some of the firehouses normally historically have some type of fire prevention program out there. And I do know that if you ever want a safety checkup, I do know that some of the firehouses do offer that. And I do know when you do your inspections, you do that. You know, if somebody calls for that, a single-family home, just like the police department does a safety check, the Fire Prevention Bureau does the same thing. So I want to thank everybody for watching I Am Piscataway, and I want to remind the folks out there that we are having a 5K run race for the Piscataway Fire Companies out on October 15th, which is a Saturday, at the community center. So if you'll contact the local fire departments about in order to enter for that. And then last but not least, there's November election coming up for the month of October. If you vote by mail, you should have received your vote by mail. Please remember to return your vote by mail, and then the early voting as well as on election day. So with that, we will see you in November.